The final item of business today is the members' business debate on motion number 8016 in the name of George Adam on Youthlink-Scotland. This debate will be concluded without any questions being put, and I would be grateful if those members who wish to speak in the debate could press the request to speak buttons as soon as possible. And I call on George Adam to open the debate. 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This debate comes in the back of a very positive inspection report on Youthlink-Scotland by Education Scotland. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do it was because it was such an improvement from the previous report in 2007 for our national youth work provider. I've seen the difference at local level that Youthlink-Scotland can make to our young people's lives, and working with many vulnerable young people and groups in the area, they actually give them opportunities for the future. Some of the uniformed groups that they've helped work with as well do some great work in my area as well. And not just that, but also some of the partner organisations that they've worked with in various groups, like in Paisley itself. There's obviously in the voluntary sector, there's the Street Scene project, which is run by Renfrewshire Council, YMCA and St Mirren FC and McGill's buses. And basically that goes into areas where there's meant to be police hotspots, and we've discussed it here in the Parliament before, and basically they go out there and they play street football, they do all kinds of other things. But the important thing is that they're actually there with the young people, actually giving them an opportunity to make sure that there isn't misbehaviour, and they're giving them something to do and somewhere to actually go. And I've noticed and witnessed how that difference can make a difference in their life when they get that opportunity with the street football in particular. And one of the things that we have to say is that we need more work like this, because in my area, that one project has actually brought antisocial behaviour by young people down to 25%. And a lot of that has just been talking and working and doing good old-fashioned youth work. And obviously, as our national provider, Youthlink-Scotland is quite an important part of that. But Youthlink-Scotland has a role as the national agency to support the youth work sector and play the part in young people's rights and well-being. The vision for YLS is to have the youth work sector that can support young people and become successful learners, confident individuals and effective contributors. And I think that's one of the most important things of the project that I mentioned earlier on as well, is the fact that the young people get the opportunity to design the project themselves and make sure that it's something that they want, not just a bunch of older people like ourselves thinking something that we would like to have done when we were younger as well. But the funding for Youthlink-Scotland is obtained from an annual grant from the Scottish Government and through bids to other government and charitable funding opportunities. In addition, YLS administers funding programmes such as Cashback for Communities, directing funds to local areas, and it's also received funding from the Big Lottery this year for £258,420. One of the things that they've managed to do in this past year is actually increase the geographic reach and abilities to deliver programmes across the whole of Scotland as well. But one of the key examples of some of the things they've done is they've, in Girl Guidance Scotland, have developed a range of initiatives in relation to young women in mental health and wellbeing. There's also the Yard Adventure Centre, which has been accessed by more than 1,500 children and young people with a range of additional support needs every single year. It's an Edinburgh-based centre, and it's obviously making a situation where there's providing care, support and fun and friendship for all the young people involved. There's also Prince's Trust Scotland Young Ambassadors Programme, which empowers young people to actively work in the Prince's Trust and engage with public decision-making and inspire other young people as well. And a project like this is extremely important, because when we talk about young people not engaging in the political process, it's mainly my answer is always that it's up to us to make sure that we make ourselves relevant to the young people, make sure that they actually want to get involved. But I think programmes like that gives them an opportunity and shows what Civic Scotland can do and what they can do in order to help and represent it. One of the high-profile projects I've been involved in nationally has been the No Knives Better Lives Education Engagement Programme, and I've seen how this has worked locally as well, because it's not, Presiding Officer, that every debate I have goes back to Paisley or goes back to St Mirren FC, but on this occasion it is relevant, because working again as part of the Street Scene programme, St Mirren, along with other partners, had a major part with Youthlink-Scotland in a lot of the local student associations in Paisley to make sure that they were part of that campaign and No Lives Better Lives, and they were able to actually get young people from a diverse background to go because of the pool of St Mirren being a partner organisation as well. And I think that's one of the things we have to, when we're dealing with young people in general, and one thing that Youthlink-Scotland does as well. It's not just it's the credibility with young people, it's ensuring that we have something that they can actually relate to and they want to be a part of. And I think that's something that we have to remember all the time as well. You know, one of the Education Scotland report itself actually said quite a lot of good things regarding it. It concluded that the National Agency for Youth Work is making a real difference in young people's lives in Scotland. They praised Youthlink-Scotland's consistency, strong leadership and direction within the sector and beyond, which resulted in a high level of successful engagement with both national and local government. The report also put across how Youthlink have been able to strengthen their position being the national agency in Scotland, and this puts Scotland in a unique position, as I've already mentioned. We're one of the only organisations representing the needs and views and aspirations of youth work organisations at a national level in the whole of the UK. So the highlights of the Education Scotland report was there was a considerable improvement in the organisation since the previous review in 2007. Staff morale was high and improved considerably, and it delivers an increasing number of government priorities in relation to young people. And this, for myself, is probably the most important thing, is the fact that we get a national, the whole idea of having a national organisation is so that we can deliver all these great ideas nationally. Because a lot of the time when we talk about some of the things within youth work in Scotland, we talk about programmes that are just local to our own specific areas. Debates like this, many MSPs get up. I mentioned the street scene one in Renfrewshire. Someone else will mention something that's happened in Edinburgh. But the good thing about Youthlink-Scotland is that they should be able to engage in all of that, tap into all of that, and make sure that things that work in one area can be used in other areas as well. And for me, that's the benefit of having a national agency in this. So at this stage, I'd like to congratulate Youthlink-Scotland on all the good work that they've done, and wish them further success in the future as they work in all of our communities with our children and young people.
Many thanks. I now call Kezia Dugdale to be followed by Mary Scanlon.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and can I congratulate George Adam on securing tonight's debate. It's a real joy to be able to stand up and say I agree with every word that George Adam says. I can't say that happens very often. In my contribution, Presiding Officer, I want to talk very briefly about three projects that I'm aware of that do tremendous work, and then make some comments about youth work overall. The first project I'd want to mention is Canongate Youth Project, and I know that it's one that the Minister is familiar with. Certainly Angela Constance has been a number of times before. It's based in central Edinburgh. And I was really delighted to be able to host them in Parliament a couple of weeks ago, where they put on basically a bit of a music concert in Committee Room 3, I think it was. Never has Theo Cruz been blasted out of a committee room to quite the same degree. But what I was really impressed by that night was two young people who were both care leavers, who had been accessing the Canongate Youth Project for about a year now, who took to the stage and basically played this incredible song that they'd written together. One was rapping, the other one was playing the guitar. And they were brilliant. They weren't just good at what they were doing. They could be selling this song now. They could be leading cutting-edge artists, and I wish them every best in doing that. But the thing that struck me about that was the importance of music in their lives, because through youth work, through Canongate Youth, they'd been able to record a song that didn't only just allow them to express themselves and how they felt about the world that they lived in, but it was also letting them realise how talented they were, and giving them the skills and confidence to be able to build on that talent that they'd perhaps not been able to do in any other environment, including at home and at school. So I was really grateful to Canongate Youth for the opportunities that they'd given those young people in particular. And the second project I wanted to talk about was Youth Buzz, which is a mobile youth work project in the East End of Edinburgh. It moves around different parts of the East End every night, and it works with dozens of kids every time that it does it. And there's loads of different facilities on this bus, from an Xbox where you can just sit and play computer games, as well as access to SDS advice about employability work, and crucially things like a C-card service, which is NHS Lothian's free condom service, which is a real mix of different services, all available available and one bus that moves around the city at night. And I just want to put on record, Presiding Officer, how grateful I am to Lothian Buses for their continued support for that project, because it is at the end of the day a bus that moves around parts of the city, and Lothian Buses park, maintain it, fund it, secure it every single week. I think it's probably worth about £15,000 a year, that contribution that Lothian Buses make, and it's worth recognising the important role that they do in doing that. The third group I wanted to mention was Girl Guiding, and George Adams already touched on it, but one thing I've been really impressed by the Girl Guides in the past year is the work that they're doing around female body image and trying to empower young women to feel more positive about themselves. But they're not just giving them the confidence to speak up on their own behalf, they're actually filling them with a degree of civic activism, which is letting them campaign on a national stage. And it was the Girl Guides that took to the airwaves recently to say why No More Page 3 was a campaign that they, as the Girl Guides, wanted to back. So it wasn't just about personal body image, but it was about turning around and saying to the country, this is not okay anymore in 2013, and we as Girl Guides are going to stand up for a more equal world in that sense. In closing, Presiding Officer, I think it's important to remember that a lot of this youth work relies on volunteers, and it also relies on increasingly stretched public funding. And although, the youth workers will do everything they possibly can to keep things going under the most strenuous of circumstances, we need to recognise that without core funding, they're fighting a losing battle. And we need to recognise that if we believe in youth work and its powers as politicians, we need to fund it. We can't just let them go from one bidding process to another and hope for the best. The second point is about capital investment. The more and more their budgets are squeezed, the more tatty the minibus becomes, the more the paint falls off the church hall roof or the community centre, and that's going to need to be addressed. But ultimately, we need to remember about the equality of access. Everybody should be able to access youth work in whatever surroundings, whether that's urban or rural or the type of community that you come from. If we value it, we've got to make sure that every young person can benefit from it. So thank you very much, Presiding Officer, for letting me just speak a little bit over the time slot, and congratulations to George Adam once again for securing this debate.
Thank you very much. Mary Scanlon, to be followed by Stuart Stevenson.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. For the first and probably the last time, I can also put on record that I agreed with everything that George Adams said. And I would like to start by congratulating George Adams for securing this debate, highlighting the important role youth work plays in supporting our young people to develop. In its role representing both the voluntary and statutory sector, Youthlink-Scotland is at the forefront of youth work, and it is for this reason, as George Adam mentioned, that the recent inspection report undertaken by Education Scotland made for such encouraging reading. The clear direction exhibited by CEO Jim Sweeney and the rest of the team meant that despite a decline in overall staff numbers, Youthlink-Scotland has managed to forge closer working relationships with local authorities. For this and for maintaining excellent staff morale, they deserve to be commended. George also mentioned the success of the No Knives, Better Lives campaign, which has done an excellent job informing young people about the true risks of carrying a dangerous weapon. And at the last count, 233 staff and volunteers had been instructed in the use of the training resource Sharp Solution and On a Knife's Edge, with another 102 young people across 9 areas becoming peer educators. Each of the 30,000 young people who cast a vote in the recent WeCTV competition held to select the best short film designed to get the No Knives, Better Lives message across will have received an important lesson in the dangers of crime. And on a related point, Youthlink-Scotland has consistently been one of, if not the top benefactor of the Cash Back for Communities programme. Last year, over £600,000 was distributed to 204 projects. This is very encouraging news and very welcome, though I would add that the presence of such funding is no substitute for a long-term, consistent financial commitment from central government to Youthlink. But more than 300 volunteers, peer educators and managers attended this year's National Youth Worker Awards, which speaks volumes about the importance of their work And for too long, the term youth worker and unsung hero went hand in hand. So I congratulate Youthlink-Scotland for challenging this and for generating some much-deserved publicity via their awards. I note the nominations for next year close on December the 19th, so anyone with someone in mind needs to move fairly quickly. But the best way to encourage more youngsters into volunteering is to also publicly recognise their achievements. In particular, this can challenge the damaging and wrong assumption that young people are somehow not invested in our communities. I came across a submission from Youthlink to the Finance Committee, which highlighted that young people living in the most deprived areas are far less likely to participate in youth work, as well as other leisure, sport and cultural activities, than their peers. One reason for this was a lack of adequate facilities, a problem which also emerged during this afternoon's debate on the youth sports strategy. So, Presiding Officer, Youthlink does a tremendous job and it deserves the cross-party support from this chamber. And as mentioned earlier, I was encouraged by Education Scotland inspection, which spoke volumes about the professional, dedicated nature of this organisation. So in the coming years, I fully expect more will be done to ensure Scotland's religious and cultural diversity is better reflected and that self-evaluation improves. Thank you.
Many thanks. And I now call Stuart Stevenson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I think it's not insignificant that this debate follows a debate on sport, because sport is, of course, one of the very important things for youngsters in our society. And I also recognise that this debate is led by George Adam, and in homage to him, I have my Paisley pattern galaxies holding my breeks up tonight. So I thank him for the opportunity to participate in this important debate. Now, Youthlink is an important part of the infrastructure that there is to support our youngsters, and not just in Paisley, of course, but across Scotland. The motion makes reference to a number of other organisations, and in particular to the Boy Scouts. I spent probably something of the order of a year of my life under Boy Scout canvas. If I have benefited from that, that's to the credit of them. My faults are entirely my own. But I acquired important skills in the Boy Scouts. I learned how to burn baked potatoes, and I did that instead of chasing girls. So it probably wasn't a terribly bad thing to be doing at the appropriate ages. Certainly my mother preferred me burning potatoes to other activities in which I might have been indulging. Now, Alec Johnson and I visited a conclave of the great and the good and the scouting movement in the north east of Scotland recently, and it was quite an illuminating experience. They had in the room a whole range of projects, some of them outdoor projects about self-development, the Duke of Edinburgh's award that people were working for, but others were community-based projects where the Scouts, the young people, were learning to support people in their own communities. And I thought it was a very, very good mix of projects indeed. And I think both Alec and I went away very much enthused by what we saw there. But, and this is quite important, but there was a clear lack of people who wanted to step forward and take the administrative leadership that was necessary to make that infrastructure grassroots volunteers work. And I think there's a clear role for organisations such as Youthlink, who operate at a national level, who can think about how we do that sort of thing. Now, in my constituency, we probably have Scotland's biggest Boys Brigade group, 250 members in the town of Buckie. So it's not just the Boy Scouts that are doing well in the North East, other organisations there as well. Now, Youthlink also, of course, organise their own interventions, particularly among those who are in areas of significant disadvantage. And as the inspection report confirms, they do well. Now, of course, when I was a youngster, and I won't be alone in this, I wanted desperately to be an adult. And now that I'm an adult, I wish I was a youngster again. But there's not very much chance of that happening. But if Youthlink and other organisations can tap into adult experience, good and bad, as it inevitably will be to aid today's youngsters, make a successful transition to adulthood, then they will absolutely deserve all the plaudits that we can give them. George Adam talked about engaging the young in community decision-making, and Kezia Dugdale talked about civic activism. And I just give one little example of how something happened in an area that was in my constituency for the best part of 10 years. The boundary change has taken it out. And that was a planning for real exercise in the little village of Maud to look at how they were going to regenerate the village. And it was a way that was structured to allow 8-year-olds, I saw going up with their little post-it notes, to stick on the map of the village the things they thought could happen. And old people, people who wouldn't speak at a public meeting on a month of Sundays, were able to participate. And I think there's often ways that we can learn how to do things that we can take to others, particularly helping the young. And that's very important because, after all, today's youngsters will decide how I'm looked after in my dotage, which some say is coming rather more rapidly than I would wish. Presiding Officer.
Many thanks. Can I now invite Aileen Campbell to respond to the debate? Minister, you have 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Presiding Officer. And I'm delighted we have had the opportunity to debate the exceptional achievements of Youthlink-Scotland and the youth work sector more widely, and add my congratulations to George Adam on securing this debate and securing what has been such agreement right across the chamber. Now, the motion, and Mary Scanlon also rightly notes that this highlights Youthlink-'s absolutely glowing recent inspection report and points to the huge and wide range of activity that Youthlink and its many members undertake to help improve the lives of young people in Scotland. And I'm really pleased to see some members of Youthlink-Scotland today in the gallery this evening. And I cannot emphasise enough how strong and significant this contribution youth work and community learning and development have to play in making Scotland the best place in the world to grow up. Youthlink-Scotland and its 100+ members are critical partners in helping us realise that ambition and our vision, and are enabling our young people to be the successful, confident, effective and responsible individuals that our nation needs, and using their skills as youth workers to help young people realise their own talents in many different ways, including through the use of music, as Kezia Dugdale pointed out through her experience of working with the Canongate Youth Project. And Youthlink-'s most recent survey highlighted that national voluntary youth work organisations are working with around a phenomenal 390,000 young people at any one time. And when we add on the wider voluntary youth work sector and local authorities, the numbers are even greater than that. So youth work represents great value and embodies the ethos of preventative spending and early intervention that we have as a hallmark of this government. It helps young people make positive choices as they transition into adulthood, and it builds capacity and skills for further learning and employability. It also enriches childhood and adolescence. The young at heart, Stuart Stevenson, talked about burning baked potatoes instead of chasing girls at the Scouts. But my own experience of youth work has included being a member of the Girls' Brigade. My mum and others ran the local youth club, supported by Youth Scotland, then Youth Club Scotland. And I had also attended a couple of meetings at the Young Farmers. So while Stuart Stevenson can burn the baked tatties, I can help with the stock judging if he wants to. But I think it's also important that we do point out and recognise the real importance of the uniform groups, as mentioned by Stuart, but also by Kezia Dugdale when she mentioned the phenomenal work of the Girl Guides. And I know members have also enjoyed talking about youth work in their own constituencies, because youth work and CLD happens in almost every village, town, city and community right across Scotland. And I'm grateful to George Adam for highlighting such excellent practice from his own constituency. And despite being a St Johnstone fan, I'm happy to endorse the work of St Mirren Football Club that has been carried out in his local area. And I'm also delighted that we have been able to support in some way the 3 groups he references in his motion this evening. Renfrew YMCA, who are creating an exciting social enterprise project developed and led by young people themselves. The 20th and the 74th Renfrewshire Scout groups to provide activity weekends for around 30 young people to learn new skills and gain qualifications in various outdoor challenges. And Play the Game in Paisley has also received funding to develop the skills of vulnerable young people through a range of theatre-related activities. So, Presiding Officer, that is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the innovation, the creativity and the passion shown by the youth work and CLD sector supported by Youthlink. And during my time in this role, I never cease to be amazed by the talent shown by the sector and their ability to enhance young people's outcomes. And in my own constituency, I've seen firsthand the excellent work of Universal Connections, the Uniform Groups, Duke of Edinburgh, Covey Befriending and Bigger Youth Project, delivering services that contribute to young people's well-being, confidence and life chances. And let's not forget, and I don't think, judging by the comments that many members have made this evening, that often these opportunities for Scotland's young people are delivered by a talented army of volunteers, giving up their own precious time to support and nurture our young people. Indeed, some of those are young people themselves, supporting their peers and giving back to their communities. And Mary Scanlon noted the importance of highlighting that work through the celebration that we have every year through the Youth Work Awards. So the Scottish Government is absolutely committed to helping youth work and CLD thrive, and over the next 2 years we're providing grants totalling around £6.9 million to national youth work organisations, supporting them to build capacity and improve outcomes for young people. Since 2007, the Cashback programme has invested over £74 million in projects and facilities for young people and the communities that they live in, with over £10.9 million of this channeled to youth work through Youthlink-Scotland and Youth Scotland. And so far this year, Youth Start has allocated over £3 million to youth projects with an indicative budget of £5.5 million. And we continue to work with the youth work sector to deliver programmes such as Active Girls, Stand Up to Sectarianism, No Knives Better Lives and activity agreements. And Education Scotland distributes small grants related to the implementation of the CLD strategic guidance for community planning partnerships to a range of organisations, including those who deliver youth work. And at the heart of the draft youth work strategy, which will be published this week, is a desire to empower young people, like those young people in Maud mentioned by Stuart Stevenson, who are engaging in the planning process, and to respect, recognise and promote children's rights and to get things right for every child and young person. The launch will mark the beginning of a national discussion on its implementation with the youth work and CLD sector and, importantly, young people themselves. This strategy will determine how best to realise our ambition for maximising the life chances of young people, to harness the value of youth work and to demonstrate how it contributes to the national outcomes in many policies right across government. The draft youth work strategy recognises youth work as a key and distinctive component of our present and future agenda for young people. And government recognises that both universal youth work and more targeted specific programmes have equal validity and importance. And we recognise that, in line with the Christie Commission and recommendations, more and more youth services are being delivered through partnership. In recognition of Youthlink national role, as was pointed out by George Adam, I've asked Youthlink-Scotland to lead on this national discussion in partnership with Education Scotland and Government, and to work with us to develop an implementation plan. So Scotland's future and the future of its young people, I think, are very bright. We're introducing new legislation to strengthen services for children and young people. We have a raft of exciting events next year to inspire and engage young people: Homecoming, the Commonwealth Games, the Ryder Cup, and of course a referendum on our future in which young people aged 16 and 17 for the first time will be able to vote. And we have a strong and imaginative youth work and CLD sector that supports and empowers young people. And one of its leaders is Youthlink. And again, I want to congratulate Jim Sweeney and the entire Youthlink team for the recent Education Scotland review. So, Presiding Officer, it gives me great pleasure to lend my wholehearted support to the motion, and by doing so to recognise the invaluable contribution that Youthlink-Scotland and youth work more generally make to the well-being and prosperity of Scotland's young people. Thank you, and thank everyone for their comments.
Many thanks, Minister. And that concludes George Adams' members' business on Youthlink-Scotland. And I now close this meeting of Parliament.